Rain, rain, and more rain. That is what it has been like every day this week. And you know what? I wouldn't want it any other way. It's just wonderful to receive such big downpours over a long period of time, especially living here in Australia where rain from the sky can be quite rare. And I have to say, receiving it now in early spring is wonderful, especially after I've planted in lots of seedlings and baby plants. That natural water is really going to help settle them all in. However, it has meant that I haven't ticked many jobs off my gardening to-do list, but that's all right because there's still lots to show you. I did mention last week that I want to give you a Dahlia update, so we'll do that. Plus we'll do a little garden harvest, but let's start off taking a look at some flowers in bloom this week. I can safely say that the garden is in official takeoff mode. By that I mean everything is starting to shoot up. The good, the bad and the ugly. So say here for example, got lots of this borage, heaps of cosmos and Californian poppies with a few buds appearing, but then also amongst them are heaps of weeds. This actually is an area that I haven't done much to at all. I really need to dedicate a couple of hours and weed this place out. What do you reckon, Autumn? It needs a bit of work, doesn't it? I find weeding after the rain requires a lot less effort because your soil is nice and soft, and pulling these out is much easier. Look what I just spotted. The first Californian poppy flower. How pretty is that? I love its bright yellow colour. These flowers are native to parts of the United States and Mexico. I just lost a petal. I was going to say that it makes sense that these grow well in my area because I live in a similar climate to their native habitat. I don't know if habitat is the right word. I think that's more for animals, but you know what I mean. Over here by this old gate, there are a lot of these pretty columbine flowers. They're actually known by a few different names. Granny's bonnet is another. This one growing down here is more of a white and pink colour. Plenty more buds on these plants as well, so lots of flowers on the way to enjoy. These have been here about 2 or 3 years, and I have to say this is the first time I've had this many blooms. This plant is a clump forming perennial. I think it's important to note that they really love to keep their roots moist, so especially during summer here I have to make sure that it's well mulched underneath there, but at the moment you can see that I don't need to worry about any mulch because this is a super weedy area and they are protecting the roots down here at the moment. Oh geez, look at this, weeds everywhere, and the passion fruit suckers. How many years has it been now since I've been telling you I've been trying to get rid of these? They just pop up everywhere. I think I'm never going to be able to get rid of those passion fruit suckers. Hopefully one day, fingers crossed, I will manage to completely banish them from my garden. Okay, let's just forget about that issue at the moment and focus on something nice. Here is a little short garden harvest that I did in between storms. I've got the cart ready. Let's do the first big garden harvest of the season. I'm thinking this orange tree is trying to send me a message. I'll pick all of these up and then some off the tree. I've noticed that a few of them have been damaged by the cockatoos, but not too many of them. That's the last from the ground. Time to pick some from up here. This is definitely not the professional way to do it, but I find it much easier. It's like I've hardly made a dent. Let's go head over to the lemon tree. Let's put this poor broken branch out of its misery and take off all of these lemons. They're such a big size this year. I'm really happy with them. The tree is covered in bees pollinating the next crop. That bit there is a little baby lemon. This one doesn't look the best, but you know what? It's organically grown. It may not look perfect, but it will taste delicious. There is a storm coming. I'm gonna have to cut this harvest short, but I'll be back with lots more. Oh, I forgot to take the clothes in. Well, that was a fun afternoon. Since I'm on a bit of a roll showing you flowers, I have got to show you these. I'm so excited to be able to share them with you. How absolutely stunning are they? These are a couple of bearded irises. I actually did a iris rhizome swap with a lady who I've become friends with back in autumn, I think it was, and she was so generous to share some of her selection. These are only 2 that have opened so far, and I have another maybe 4 varieties. Like, look at the colours on these. I don't know, is it sad to say that this actually makes me feel emotional looking at these? I just think they're absolutely beautiful and it makes my heart happy. What you're looking at here is one of many bearded irises that I have in my garden, and this is what I gave to my friend in the swap. This is a beautiful one here. It's actually supposed to be quite rare. My other friend, who was a horticulturalist and now is currently a private detective, she had a bit of a career change. She very generously gifted me a few of these rhizomes a few years ago, and I'm really pleased with how much they have grown and started to multiply. I've also got a few of these yellow bearded irises dotted around the garden. You can see all the petals have been damaged from the rain, but looking from a distance, it's still very beautiful and cheery. I also have a lot more foxgloves beginning to flower. This is a lovely purple coloured one. Let me see if I can just pull this off. Don't worry, I'll wash my hands after because I know they're poisonous. But let's see, look inside there. I just think there's something so whimsical about this flower. I want to show you a little video about these biannual plants. In Irish folklore, you can attract fairies into your garden by growing foxgloves, but be careful not to pick these flowers as the fairies don't like them being plucked. I hope you enjoyed that little bit of Irish trivia. I mentioned last week that I was going to give you an update on my dahlias, and I have actually done quite a bit of preparation to get them going. However, I do have to say that the last few days with all the rain has really put a stop to any work I've been doing out in the garden. I'll start off by saying that I'm going to have 3 main areas where I'm going to grow the dahlias. The first one is all along here. So these green shoots are actually from dahlia tubers that I had left in the ground. There's about 4 or 5 here. Some of them are a little bit behind compared to the others. You can see there though, they're looking nice and healthy, putting up the green little shoots from the ground. You might also notice down here that the ground is covered in a layer of this bark. I have a big pile of this out in the front, a few cubic meters that I'm being gradually spreading around the garden. All of this bark will help with weed suppression, but more importantly, well, I think at least, it will eventually break down and help to feed the soil beneath. And I'm telling you, down there needs a lot of help because it's quite clayey at the moment. Clay, I mean clay soil. I've actually got a bit exposed here to show you. You can see it's quite dense. Now with clay soil, I think sometimes it gets a bit of a bad rap because people think, well, I think it's true, it does get quite compacted and sometimes it deprives plants of oxygen. But I'd much prefer my soil to be in this condition than to have sandy soil. And this is easily amended by adding, as I said, some bark and other organic matter like compost and manures. And after, I would say probably next year or the year after that, this soil will become much more friable. In this area, I'm thinking I'll put about 16 plants. So I have already started to mark them out with some stakes and getting the support cages ready for them. I'll come back to them later to show you how I made them. Pretty straightforward though. So if we swing around this way and ignore all of that mess, this is the fan garden. So I'm going to have an archway here, put the fans back up again, the upcycled fan covers. This is what I'm talking about, these mass produced often poorly made fans that I see so many of them being thrown out during our biannual council pickups, which is like a hard waste collection. I really like using these in upcycle projects, and you know what, I don't mind a bit of this rust. I'm actually kind of really into the rust because I think up against green foliage it really pops. So as I just mentioned, I use them to create archways as a bit of a feature, and then over here I've just popped this in quickly. I wasn't actually currently using it, it was lying down on the ground, but just to give you a bit of an idea, I also use them to make these decorative trellises. Really nice to grow peas or beans on them, but you can also just pop them into a flower bed and they just draw your eye. And I don't mind having my eye drawn to this section. Quickly show you these. Some of the poppies are starting to open. These are the peony salmon poppies. I think last week I said to you that I wasn't sure what they were, a bit of a surprise. Poppies can be like that sometimes. They, like their name maybe suggests, they tend to pop up in random places. These are just some buds. But over here, this one is going to be an interesting one because I think the colour is slightly different. It has more of a purpley tinge to it. You can see there in the petals. I'd love if that one was a nice kind of purple one. Over here is the second area where I'm going to have the dahlias in this section, and I've already put the tubers in. There's going to be 8 tubers in here, and these are larger ones which I transferred from other areas in the garden, and you can see this is very exciting. Lots of shoots on some of them. With these dahlias, because they're in a nice straight row, I'm going to try a different method for support. It's called corralling. So I will have stakes set up on either side of here, and then I'm going to use some twine to wrap around in and out, creating a support system for the new stems when they pop up. The other main area where I'll have the dahlias is in this original dahlia patch, and yes, I still haven't removed that branch that broke. I just have not had the time, but look, the lemons are still looking nice and healthy on it, and you know, hopefully maybe the weekend or so I'll get that done. So yeah, I'm thinking, I've calculated I can put at least 12 dahlia tubers in here. And then I think I showed you this area last week. I've put in a lot of dahlia tubers in this garden bed. They're marked with the stakes, and in this section what I will do is similar to what I just showed you at the beginning, where I will attach some wire mesh in a semicircle to make a kind of cylinder to support all the new growth that will pop up from the ground. I'm back over at the dahlia cages that I made. I actually discovered that this kind of wire mesh is much better than the chicken wire because it's a bit firmer and it has larger spaces. I'm thinking this wider area may be better for the stems and the foliage when it's growing to pop through. Maybe better than the chicken wire, which has smaller holes that potentially could cause damage. I've just grabbed the two of them side by side to show you the difference. So here is the chicken wire, and then this one is the other mesh I'm talking about. Now, the other big difference between the two of these is the cost. So I did buy this roll quite a while ago, maybe a year or two ago, and it cost me as far as I can remember about $80 for 10 meters. But with the chicken wire, can't remember off the top of my head, but it's way cheaper. This is my very first time making these cages. It's all a bit of an experiment. So you know what? I'm going to take a risk on a couple of my tubers and make some of these chicken wire cages too and see how they go. Here's a few measurements for you, but before I say anything, I know I've just mentioned it, but please just note that this is my very first time making these. I am not recommending them, I'm just telling you what I've done. I'll wait until the end of summer, after this experiment has come to the end, then I'll give you a review and tell you whether it was worth doing. So here, this is approximately 1.5 meters in length. I just chopped it off with some pliers, and then I had some Ziploc ties lying around, so I just kind of looped it around into a cylinder and used the ties to support it onto this 1.5 meter stake. I only use these plastic ties because I had them lying around. A more eco alternative would be to use a bit of wire or twine to tie these up. And then finally, the height of this is about 60 centimeters, and that's something I'm kind of questioning. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing with that, because I know some dahlias can get quite tall, up to over a meter in height, but I'm just going to start off doing this. It's much better than the support I had last year, so we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you updated on it. Finally, before I head off this week, I do want to show you this, which is my new Dahlia collection. I purchased these tubers back in July when it was my birthday, and I received a bit of money from my family, so I thought it was a good investment because these will multiply over the years. And you can see here that some of them are already really starting to take off, while others are just beginning to sprout through the soil, and some haven't made any appearance yet, but not to worry, they'll all be up and running very soon. I've got a few down here. I think I've got about 25 in total, maybe more, which, you know, is a lot of money. These are not cheap, but I really think they're worth every penny, and I cannot wait to show you them all when they start to flower, and, you know, the progress over the next few months as they begin to grow, and see how all those different support systems turn out. Well, we have now come to the end of this week's garden update. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you again next Friday.